Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from over half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. This is Joe Saponari of SciMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigman of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. For the freshest content, a peek behind the scenes, and more candid conversation about running our businesses, dealing with clients, fixing tough technical issues, and everything else you love about Command Control Power, we invite you to join us on Patreon so you don't miss any of this great content. Go to commandcontrolpower.com and click support. Pledge monthly, and you can instantly subscribe to the patron-only shows right in your favorite podcast app. Once again, to join us on Patreon and get the latest patron-only episodes, visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. We hope to see you there, and thanks for listening. So we were talking about Apple Music recently just because the UI on the Mac was maybe too simple for me. I just couldn't figure it out right away. I think I've got a handle on it now, though. And I think, Jerry, you might have mentioned this at one point. I don't know if it was on the show or personally, but I've noticed this, and my wife Ashley has mentioned this too. Apple Music playlists are really good. Have you guys played with those?
That wasn't me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't use
I don't know why I thought Jerry might have mentioned something about Apple Music playlist, maybe from a client or something. But yeah, so I've noticed it, and my wife has mentioned it too. She really likes the Apple Music playlist, and I listen to them all the time. Let me go through my music app here. Apple Music Jazz. Okay, so it's an Apple Music Jazz playlist called New Latitudes. It's just a recommendation I have. It's a fun playlist that I like to listen to just in the background as I'm working. There's one from Apple Music Electronic called Headspace, and both of those are ones I've been listening to for a couple years now. And the nice thing about these playlists is they change pretty regularly. So they'll tell you, like I go to this playlist right now, and it says updated 2 weeks ago. Sometimes it'll be updated relatively recently, and they'll swap out some songs. So it'll change a little bit over time. Sometimes it'll change pretty significantly, but it keeps it interesting because some of the stuff you'll get used to, you'll hear it and you'll like it and you'll want to hear it again. And some stuff gets tiresome and they change it out. But they have music for all different, how do they call it here? Basically just like by genre or by activity. So another one, Apple Music Chill, and it's called Blossom. And that's for music that just is barely there, but it's something that still holds a little bit of interest. So it's not just like white noise. It's very minimalist, but it's got sometimes a nice melody, but it's like music you can work to, not lyrical, that kind of thing. So those are just 3 really nice recommendations. Of course, Apple Music Sleep has a sleep sounds playlist that's really nice for sleeping or later in the evening. There's one called Peaceful Focus. There's just a lot of cool stuff. You can listen to sounds from the forest. You can listen to that kind of background music. They do have white noise playlists and things like that as well. They have one called Coding that I just can't get into because it starts to go into like really weird directions for me. But I've listened to some of that, and it's like nice for a while, but then it goes into music that I don't particularly dig. There's one from Apple Music Classical called Classical Chill that I really like. So there's just a lot of really good stuff. Or if you want something for fitness, Apple Music Fitness, there's one called Restorative Yoga that's really good. So yeah, anyway, just some recommendations on really amazing Apple playlists. And I think that they do a really great job of curating stuff.
No, tip from Joe there, Sam.
Look at that. As I do on this show, I just added a few of those playlists as he was talking about them. Nice. I added Headspace and Chill for sure.
Those are both great. Yeah. Highly recommended. And there's just a ton of stuff. And I'll add stuff to my playlist. As I'm listening to the playlist, I'll add it to my library. So if I really like a song, I've heard it a few times. Oh, that's that song that I like. I'll just add it, or I'll love it. There's a love button there in Apple Music. I don't know. Spotify, I don't know if they use love or whatever, but you get the idea. And then it'll play more like that. And if you save it, that's a good thing because the playlist might swap that song out at some point. So it's good that you have it saved to your local library as well.
Sam added Headspace because he just had a crown done.
Yeah, just in case the audience thinks I'm drunk, I'm slurring because I just had a crown done at the dentist. So if I sound a little odd, that's why.
Nice. I thought you guys might like those. Ashley's a longtime Spotify user. I forget which services you guys use. Sometimes I need a little bit of encouragement for a client. They're like on board with Apple everything, but they're a Spotify holdout. And I'm not trying to like convince anybody, but hey, try the first party solution, give it a try. This is one of those things you can tell a client they might like it. If they're used to this, what Spotify has to offer, check out Apple Music playlists. Maybe that's going to help them wean themselves off of Spotify and get fully on board with the Apple One subscription.
I've been hitting the gym a lot more lately, but I've been going 4 or 5 times a week, and I've been getting sick of the music I've been listening to. So I was actually looking for some new music, and even if I'm running or on the elliptical or something like that, I like chill music. It settles my brain while I'm doing something active. And I'm always curious about what other people are listening to when they're at the gym or working out. Because, people bobbing their heads or doing whatever. What kind of music are they listening to at the time? But I listen to a wide range. I don't know about you, Joe, when you're doing yoga or whatever. Do you go from hard rock to Tool and then to restorative yoga sessions, or do you range that much?
I do sometimes, depending on activity. I think the one thing the last couple of weekends that I've enjoyed is doing some stretching, actually studying yin yoga, which is like a different kind of yoga that's more, so you hold poses for long periods of time and that kind of thing. It's not as active. It's more, I guess, more restorative. It's different from quote unquote restorative yoga. But on the weekend, on a Saturday morning, I'll listen to podcasts actually, and I'll just stretch. And what I find is it's a very light form of multitasking. And in the way you're describing, it entertains my brain or keeps my brain occupied. So I don't mind holding a pose for 5 minutes or something because I'm listening to something that's entertaining or interesting in the background. So I'll listen to podcasts when I do that. I can't listen to podcasts when I do most of the kind of work that we do. In those cases, when I'm working, I'll listen to some kind of usually non-lyrical music. But yeah, Tool is a whole different story. That's a spiritual experience.
All right, I need a piece of this. Since everybody phoned in their likes and desires. So I can't listen to any music if I'm doing work. It's a completely different thing. It's the television running in the background. How can I do invoicing and run the TV or run music? It's impossible. But in terms of exercising, I just wanted to throw in a tip. When COVID hit, we bought a treadmill, supposedly a air quotes commercial treadmill from Nordic Track, and it was 0% financing, so we're doing it on payments. And it was the best thing I ever did because we got a rowing machine for a while, and for whatever crazy reason, I kind of off the rowing machine. I'm trying to do treadmill every day, so I'm doing a minimum of 3 miles a day, and I wasn't really getting the, I'll use a fancy word here, telemetry from the Apple Fitness app that I really wanted in terms of just not calories expended, but just I needed a little bit more information wearing my Apple Watch. And there is this great app, which I have found none better. It's subscription based. I think it's $70 for the year, which seems to be standard. You buy a yoga app or you buy any kind of a fitness app. Most of them have a recurring fee. And this is called Athlytic, but it's spelled Athlytic. And you could do a 7, I think, or 10-day trial. But it's terrific. It gives me a lot more information when I'm doing the running, and it really pushes me along to best myself. And they also track sleep better, I think, than the Apple app does. So I've been wearing my watch to bed at night and mostly looking at what my recovery is. And then they base your next training suggestion on what your previous night's recovery was. And you can put in things like, yeah, I drank 2 6-packs and I feel like crap today. But it's good.
I feel great right now, but I'm going to feel like crap later.
But so that's my 2 cents. And when I've been on the treadmill, I don't listen to music at all, although I would like to do that. But I find it's much more informative to actually run Netflix off my iPhone. So I got my iPhone and I watch documentaries. And the current one I'm watching right now is the one on Skinwalker Ranch out in Nevada there, where they're getting that paranormal activity. So that's pretty interesting.
Oh, cool.
I like stuff like that. Really? Skinwalker Ranch. I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I'll get you the exact name as we move on with our episode.
I've been looking for some reason to keep Netflix these days. I'm like never using that anymore.
You can get the new Pam Anderson entry. That's going to be good, Sam. I know you like her.
Yeah, I'm not in my 20s anymore. That was a thing back in the day.
Yeah, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. That's what it's called. You could also watch one on Scientology. I watched one on that and the trials and tribulations.
Thinking of joining?
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige. All good stuff.
Nice. I'm putting that Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch on my list here. I use the Notes app. I just stick it in a little note for movies, TV, and books. So.
Yeah, all this stuff is dumbed down, especially when it's episodic. The big thing now with documentaries on Netflix is that it could be all done in 1 2-hour documentary. They make 8 episodes of it, and they rehash the same stuff over and over again. But
yeah,
you tolerate it for the payoff at the end.
So I got one more thing on the music topic. I know you don't want to date the show, Jerry, but the HomePod version 2 just came out recently. I was talking about the HomePod Mini. I think for $99, it's a great product. The sound is great, surprisingly very decent sound, room-filling sound, at least plenty big enough for my rooms here. It's just nice to have all this stuff built in and first party on the home screen and all for multi-room audio, all that kind of stuff. Set one up here that's paired with my Apple TV, and it's my audio system for the Apple TV. And then I bought one for my wife to use mainly for yoga, and that's in the bedroom. And we're setting it up, and sometimes we'll move it to a different room or whatever. And Ashley's quote on this was, wait a minute. So Apple released a device that doesn't work if it's not plugged in? It doesn't have a battery? I was like, that's a great point. This thing would be amazing if it had a battery. Carry it to a different room. Yeah. Why doesn't it just sit on a base that charges it up passively all the time? And it's always got a topped off battery. And then you just pick it up, like it's using inductive charging or whatever, pick it up and just move it somewhere else. It would be amazing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that'll be version 3 or whatever. It's funny sometimes to get the perspective of a non-IT person on this stuff, because I'm like, yeah, that is dumb that it doesn't have a battery. You don't expect Apple to release something that has to be plugged in all the time. You carry your iPhone, there's no tethered power cable. That's the way people think about it. And it's that kind of product, but yeah, it's not that kind of product.
I've been using the HomePod Mini more and more actually up in my bedroom lately. When I watch TV, the TV sound where it is in the room just really doesn't project well enough if I'm trying to lie in bed and watch TV. I bought this Mini a while ago. I put it upstairs as an intercom. I don't know, so I could tell my son, hey, time for bed if he's upstairs. But I never really used it much. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. I can just project the sound through the HomePod Mini. And now I just have it next to my nightstand. And it's amazingly different. Yeah. I don't have to turn up the sound to 50. I just listen to it and it's right next to me in awesome sound. So it's been great for that. I finally found a use for it after just sitting collecting dust for a while.
Nice.
I just wanted to recommend one extension that I just purchased for Safari called Dark Reader. The reason why this came about is because I was working in the evening and the room was dark, and I use dark mode, but there are certain sites that just don't have a dark mode version natively. And one of them is actually Zendesk, which is my ticketing system. So I can't use Zendesk without that bright white shining at me all the time if I'm looking at tickets. So Dark Reader was $4.99. It's a single purchase, not a subscription. And I bought it, and you flip the switch and it just turns all the like bright sites to dark mode for you, even if they don't support it natively. It's been pretty great. I've been using it for a little under a week. So I wanted to throw that out there.
So you manually have to activate it when it's not happening on a certain website?
No, you can just turn it on, and it's just on for any of your sites if you wanted to. But you can do that if you prefer not to have it for all the sites that you may not want to have that switch on. But I just turn it on to auto mode, and it just switches all my sites to dark mode anyway.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's a nice tip. So, Sam, how's 1Password been working out for you? I heard you grumbling a little bit more about some 1Password issues. Are you switching to Dashlane yet? I have a few clients who use Dashlane for some reason.
I'm a big LastPass user now.
Yes, that's the one. Nice.
1Password, I have had my issues. I still love it. Don't get me wrong. For whatever reason, maybe I'm a one-off scenario, but the extension with Safari and any browser has just not been working consistently. It'll tell me there are no items in my password list for the site that I'm going to. But if I go to the 1Password menu bar, it's there. It shows it. And sometimes it can autofill from there. Sometimes it can't. But the extension in Safari and more often in Chrome just doesn't see it or can't fill it. And I found that oftentimes turning off the extension in Safari or turning it off and then quitting Safari will activate it again, and then it starts working. So it's a nuisance, but it's way better than any manual password policy. So I'm going to live with it for now, and I'll just grumble to you guys and anyone else that wants to listen on air. But I actually did have a legitimate problem beyond that. I don't think it's me anyway, but I don't know, because the technician was like, I've never seen that before. I manage a bunch of different SonicWalls, and if you've noticed, when you do the open and fill in 1Password, it briefly adds a whole mishmash of random letters and characters and numbers.
The URL, or where?
In the URL. It's actually, that's a design that they've said that's what they do, because they add that to the string portion of the web address to help the extension know what item to fill. That's a legitimate thing. If you look at it closely, it does that.
Got it.
But it's usually nothing. It's just incredibly brief, and it just redirects to the site and it autofills. But for some reason, this is specific to all the SonicWalls that I go to. Open and fill does not work. It adds that string to the end of it, and it just never takes it away. So then the SonicWall site says, we don't know what site this is. And so I have to manually take away the string, and then I can fill it. This is apparently a bug now that they're addressing, because I gave them all the information that they needed, and they can't figure out why that's happening just with SonicWalls. And not one particular client or anything like that. It's like any SonicWall that I go to, it happens on. That's my latest gripe. Even though, yes, I still have love in my heart for 1Password, it's just a very annoying thing because I'm trying to bounce back and forth between different SonicWalls.
This is probably because you haven't paid your SonicWall maintenance fees that they keep on bothering you about.
The $99 a month they want to charge.
It's funny that they would do that in the first place, add garbage text or a unique identifier to the end of the URL. And I feel like might affect some sites. And sure enough, here's an example.
Yeah.
But have you guys noticed when you do, speaking of password managers, you're dealing with iCloud Keychain password management, let's say in Safari, and you can click the button change password on a website, right? It takes you to the website, and it actually does have text after the website also that will show a dot and then known password or change password depending on the situation. I don't know if they're trying to promote this as a standard for different websites, but they want the site to take you to whatever the URL is on that site to change your password. So let's say you change your password for PayPal. It's supposed to direct you to like paypal.com/dot known password or dot change password or something. I forget what the text is, but I've seen that appear in different cases, and I'm pretty sure it's like an Apple thing that they embed in the URL. And I guess because it's prefixed with a dot, it's supposed to not have any effect on the URL, similar to like question mark and then mark whatever equals such and such, and that's to send I used to know what that meant in technical terms, but obviously it like it sends data. I think it's like like a post request or something anyway, but the point is it tells the site the parameter to pass through some function. It's an interesting situation. I've had to deal with this stuff again recently. It's like, speaking of Dashlane, that a client was using Dashlane. There's some kind of thing you have to do now to like enable that. And I don't know if 1Password has to do this in Ventura. It's to enable it as like an extension or something, not specifically in Safari, but like system wide. There's just so much to keep up with.
Yeah, I think it's a background item that needs to be added.
That for sure. But there's like some other thing. And I thought they called it an extension, and you have to go and check the box for it.
And you're saying not in Safari specifically?
No, it's like it's in system settings, and it was happening. Everything was happening very quickly at this appointment, and I didn't pay attention. I was like, yeah, you just have to enable that. It's like, I don't know, like whatever. It's like the first time I'm seeing it. Like, yeah, just enable that. It's fine. But it was something to do with password managers and extensions and enabling something. But I see the same thing you're describing in 1Password, where I don't know if it's the same issue because you're saying that it doesn't show you any results, but in some cases it just doesn't even appear, like the extension doesn't even appear as a little icon in the toolbar, or the icon appears but you click it and absolutely nothing happens. You get that call from clients, oh yeah, just quit Safari. That didn't work. Sometimes it does work, and then I don't know, quit Safari, quit the 1Password mini helper thing, quit 1Password completely, and then reopen 1Password and then reopen Safari, and that'll just dumb things like that.
There seems to be like a chain of events that has to be done in a very specific order, and then it comes back. But lately, turning off the extension does seem to do it for me. This is maybe something I should know, but I don't. 1Password 7 was App Store. 1Password 8 is now not the App Store. And thought maybe that was originally because it was a beta release and they were testing it, but it seems like that's the full app. So they're pulling it from the App Store? Have you guys seen that?
Did not notice that. But yeah, that stuff's really annoying. And the updater, the 1Password updater seems to be problematic too. Whereas most apps are, okay, I'm installed here, I'm just going to update myself. 1Password pops up this thing. You have multiple copies of 1Password. This happens when a client has a clone. It's a carbon copy clone or clone runs nightly. And then there's a clone attached all the time to the system. And the 1Password updater will be, I don't know what to do. There's all these 1Password apps everywhere. How about you just update the one that's in the applications folder? Just do that. Instead, I have to field these calls from clients and deal with it. But yeah, I think that was an issue specifically with the standalone one, not the App Store one, which, but then the side effect of the App Store one is you have to manage the extension differently or something. I can't keep track of it. There's too many different layers to it.
Yeah, I still love the product. There's some frustrations, but I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're not switching to LastPass anytime soon?
No, that's not in the cards for me.
Do you ever come across those clients where they think that they've got it all figured out and they're running DuckDuckGo and just annoying.
All the time. I had my neighbor's son. I had to work on her Windows computer, which I absolutely hate doing. And I was helping her out, and she got a new computer. And he's, oh, no, this identity management on Windows didn't come out until this stage. Okay, dude, I don't want to do this. I'm looking to help your sister out for free. So don't start getting on me about your little knowledge bump there.
Right.
I was just extremely frustrated, but I was trying to be cordial. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Jerry.
Yeah, they're retired and they're worried about their search results. What the hell are you searching for? That you've got to use this inferior search engine called DuckDuckGo, and I can't even parse through the information. I'm like you guys. I'm really good at just reading Google, knowing exactly what are ads, reading some of the short little truncated synopsis of what the website is, and know which one to pick, like really quickly. And all I'm just looking at is garbage on the screen. Yeah. Duck garbage.
Yeah. Tell them how you really feel. Yeah, I get that. I think that it's probably just a situation where you would get just as comfortable with DuckGo if you did use it. But I agree with you. I still use Google. It's just what I'm most comfortable with. I haven't put the time into. I'd be flailing a little bit if I tried to switch at first. It wouldn't be as familiar to me, and I'd have to go through that. I am curious. I signed up for Bing for the whatever it is, a preview of the new Bing that's going to incorporate chat. I guess it's not Chat GPT. It's the actual language model GPT or whatever. And that's exciting that we might have some competition in search pretty soon. And that Microsoft, if there's anybody who can do it, they probably stand a pretty decent chance of building a competitive search engine. And DuckDuckGo, I'm glad they're out there. But this stuff reminds me of the sort of recommendations that go around sometimes. My kids said that I have to use Chrome for everything. That's the cool thing. It used to be that Firefox was cool, or I don't even know what some of the other ones were, Edge or something that would come up. And you hear from like a parent what the kids are telling them to do.
I think I caught Sam using Opera.
Opera, yeah. Yeah. But I had an interesting one from a client. It was not that recent, but it was like a couple years ago. And they said, we only use Firefox. And I said, really? I don't see a lot of people who prefer Firefox. I mean, the last time that was cool. Yeah, the Foxfire was like when those same parents were getting the advice from their kids, you have to use Firefox. That's the cool one. Don't use Internet Explorer way back then. But their reasoning was pretty good. Firefox is a nonprofit. And so they don't have the same kind of incentive structures that certainly Google does or even Microsoft. Or maybe DuckDuckGo doesn't make a browser, but looking at Firefox as a nonprofit organization versus like Google, this massive behemoth for-profit company, I could see where they're coming from. Speaking
of ChatGPT, Joe, a couple of weeks ago when you asked if anybody had a snippet for employee monitoring software, you were approached and a client was asking you, do you recommend employee monitoring software? So I didn't have a snippet, but I got ChatGPT to load, and what I pasted in our chat. That was pretty good. It sure did. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, it was pretty decent. I edited it lightly, but I basically used that as part of my response to the client because that was my position on it, and I don't want to take the time to try to write this up and whatever. So thanks for Googling that for me or ChatGPTing that for me. It's useful in that way. You already have to know what the correct answer is. You know, you have to be able to vet it. So it's of limited utility in that sense. You can't really learn from it, but you can use it to save you some time. I asked it, what is command control power? That was one of my little sample queries. I want to see if it knows about our show, but also obviously it's going to tell me about the keyboard shortcut. So I'm like, it's a simple query, right? So I said, what is command control power? And it explained to me how it was this keyboard shortcut on the Windows operating system, and it can be used to soft reboot the computer. None of this is right. They don't have that key on Windows anyway. So it was wrong. It was just straight up wrong. It gave me like 5 bullet points, and I think 3 of the 5 were inaccurate. Maybe that's like an obscure question or too general or something. You do have to know how to whether it's giving you the right information or not. What I'm really excited about is with the release of Ventura, Apple has finally worked out all the kinks with using a Yubikey, which is a hardware key to unlock and protect your digital asset. And in this case, it could be your phone or it could be your computer. And I ordered 2 up and in parallel without me knowing, because great minds think alike. Sam, you ordered 2 Yubikeys as well, right? Because you need 2 is what they required, right? One goes into a safe deposit box just in case the first one fails or something.
Yeah, exactly. In a safe spot in case you have an issue or lose your first one.
So where would be your second safe spot, just in case?
Yeah, just tell.
I'm not telling you, my sock
it.
drawer.
You haven't fully deployed it? What's going on with that?
I set it up to be like an authentication piece on the Mac. I had a couple of issues with pairing it. It was going through a loop where it wouldn't pair, but I think I've resolved that. And I got to test it out actually tonight to make sure that worked. One of my colleagues wrote a guide on how to use it in conjunction with your Apple ID as a second factor instead of having MFA or a phone number or something like that. You can have the Yubikey be your second factor. The guide's on the site, so it's free to use.
So you have to use the Yubikey to unlock your Mac now, yes?
No, not yet. So there was the pairing part that I was going in that loop on. So literally before the show is when I was making sure that I can finish that pairing piece. So I got to log out after the show and just make sure that it works.
You might need a pairing knife, I think, to accomplish this. Now, I got that nifty little key holder, too. I thought that was really groovy. So
everybody's going to have like a special key holder?
Yeah, it was right on there on the website. I couldn't resist.
Yeah, somebody can steal your keys, and then I guess you have to go back to your sock drawer and get the second one in that case. And I'd be sweating to make sure that the thing isn't, that it really does work. So see the prior discussion about Time Machine. This is the kind of thing that cannot fail, right? I don't know if I'm ready to trust this new hardware multi-factor authentication.
You look my grandfather.
Option.
Yeah. He loved to watch Gunsmoke, right?
Sounds just like me, yeah.
He loved Gunsmoke. And Gunsmoke came out in color, right? He had been watching it for years in black and white. It came out in color, and he would sit there in front of his black and white TV, and we would say, Grandpa, why don't you buy a color TV? And he would say, they're not perfected yet. And the poor guy suffered for years watching black and white.
God. That's
I mean,
going to be
Joe,
me. You're going to see me in a rocking chair typing my long 16-character password when I'm 90 years old. I'm going to refuse to use a key.
My uncle, when he was living in the city, he didn't have a lot of money at the time. He had two TVs. One that didn't have a picture. It was all fuzzy and messed up and produced sound. And the other one that had a picture but no sound. So he put one on top of the other and tuned them to the same channel.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's Cosmo Kramer right there.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are testing this out, though. I thought you were going with the login, the Apple ID login issue, not the Mac user account login angle. But both are interesting to me for obvious reasons.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, but they have to work. And so plan B is the second Yubikey, and that's it.
There's also like a pin you can set and a management key. So I think you do have backdoor approaches. I was reading on the instructions that if you unpair your Yubikey, but you still have the smart card requirement there, you could end up getting locked out completely. If you do things wrong and you want to remove the Yubikey, you can totally screw yourself.
Yeah, I bet. It's a whole new thing. I'm glad they're working on that and that they're supporting it. I'm glad you guys are testing it out. I'm very curious to hear how it works. And if you get locked out, then I told you. But if it protects you from data loss and from hackers, then you guys were right. So
everything should be in the cloud, Joe. The computer can get busted and you don't have to rely on Time Machine or anything else.
Yeah, I got a Time Machine backup, so I'm all set.
Good luck restoring.
Yeah, it's not encrypted, is it? Because I'm sure the encryption is stored in your keychain, which is going to be locked with the Yubikey, so it's a catch-22. So, yeah, it's going to be a nightmare scenario for a lot of my clients at some point, I'm sure.
I see Joe with his tinfoil hat right now.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan, especially on the cloud side, the iCloud side. That's great that they're allowing this option to essentially prevent Apple from even having the ability whatsoever to turn over your data to a government or whatever, or for that matter, obviously the more likely scenario is to let a hacker hack in. Because right now, the exposure point is the fact that if somebody steals your phone number somehow, then they can get in. That's the kind of root of the whole thing. Right. If they don't have your iCloud password or any of your devices, then you might feel pretty safe. But if they steal your phone number, they can just impersonate you and get in. I think there are delays built in things where you probably have a chance to not let that happen. But let's say you're on vacation with your phone off for 5 days and a hacker who's sufficiently motivated knows that, then maybe they can get a running start. But if you use a hardware key to encrypt the whole thing, then that's it. No one's getting in, including you if you lose the key.
I purposely got this because I'm going to be taking a little trip with the family in a couple of weeks, and I got to bring the laptop with me. That's what motivated me to get this right away.
And then keep the laptop in a different bag from the Yubikey, obviously. Keep that. I guess you're keeping it on your keychain with that little special key holder thing.
So I'd have to say probably over a year ago, I worked with a small design company in the city remotely. I've never met them before. They were all from someone else in New York City, and they had just gotten a Synology and had no idea how to set it up. I'd never been there, so I just went through the whole process remotely. I probably shouldn't have even taken this job, to be honest with you, but I took it and I helped them plug it in. They were very not savvy. The choice of words for them is just, I can't even explain. They're the youngest people that I've seen that have not been technologically savvy. You know what I mean? That age range of people that just know stuff because they grew up with this. They were like late 20s people that just had no idea. So I helped them through this, basic things to even connect the cords and how to do things and get this Synology going. And we got them going. Then I was like, I'm never going to hear from them again. And I didn't for 8 to 10 months or something. It was ages. Then they reached out because they changed offices, and we had set them up with a VPN in their old office, and they had a dynamic IP address. We had to set that up properly so that they can connect to the VPN. And so they moved, and they're like, our VPN's not working. I'm like, yeah, there's a reason for that. So we got to fix that. And then we haven't actually used the Synology since we spoke. Wait, what? Yeah, we've been using things on this computer, using some Dropbox, some Box. I'm like, so this thing has done nothing but collect dust. She's like, yeah, but we really want to set it up and get VPN going again. Okay, all right, let's do this. So we start talking, and I can't connect to the Synology from her computer. I did a remote session to her computer, and I just can't connect to it. You sure everything's plugged in and everything? She's like, yeah, I'm seeing lights and everything like that. I'm trying to scan the network, see if the IP address changed. I'm going to ask you this, I don't want you to be insulted. Is the network cable plugged in to the wall? Oh, she's like, I was wondering what that thing was for. And I was like, okay. I spent like maybe 40 minutes with her on the phone until I asked the stupidest of all questions. When you moved it, did you plug the freaking cable into the wall? And we finally got that going. I don't know why I'm working with them. It's just frustrating every time. They don't know anything. And I was too stupid to ask that question, apparently. So never again.
It's tough sometimes with folks where you start with the best intentions on both sides. And then I had a session recently where we spent 40 minutes and she didn't know the password to get into her Windows computer. She only knew the PIN, and we went through the password reset and she couldn't reset the password. And so we're in 40 minutes in. I said, I got to charge you. And it was game over. It's really challenging. And then I did another remote session with a guy who was an AV installer, and he was trying to install these streamers on the network, and there was no port forwarding necessary at all. The guy, this is the weirdest thing. Did you know that Amazon supposedly has their own DNS service?
Yes, actually, I did.
I had never heard of this before.
Yeah.
It's part of AWS, right?
Yeah.
It's straight threes, or at least the first the octet is straight threes. So I said to this guy, we asked, of course, the standard. I said, well, you can give them IPs ending in 6 and the sequentially and then 7, and the gateway ends in 1, and then the subnet mask is your standard 255 3 times and a 0. And I said, what about DNS? I said, just put in any DNS is DNS. He called me. He was spending hours on it. And the name of the company that makes the streamer is a company called Rust Sound. I don't know if you've seen these higher end homes, whole house systems.
I think I've heard of it, but don't know it.
Yeah. So come to find out, we couldn't even update the firmware. I logged into these boxes and I said, I don't know what's going on here. And we had the manufacturer on the phone. Come to find out, it was the Amazon DNS that prevented these from connecting out to the network.
Wow.
Yeah, or out to the internet. It baffled me. The manufacturer had no idea why it was not working. And as soon as we changed it to, first entry was Cloudflare, and the second one I put in was Google, and it worked like a champ. Actually, I put the Cloudflare as primary, straight ones. When I looked at the status of the boxes, it only read the secondary Google DNS. So it was probably bad programming inside the firmware of these streamer boxes that it would only see Google, which I thought was really weird.
That is weird.
Yeah. Man, there's all kinds of stuff out there. This stuff will drive you crazy. The amount of time I spend just dealing with stuff like that, you just want to smack yourself in the forehead at the end of it.
Or smack the client around.
Whatever it takes. Oh, man.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't blow. Have you tried restarting? But my data is gone. Have you tried restarting? I dropped it